So we need to cling to the hope that we have, because I know that my wife would in no way want to return. She's in the presence of God right now. She doesn't want to return. Take comfort in the Scriptures. I love the Psalms, many Psalms. Psalm 30. Thou hast turned for me my mourning into dancing. Thou hast put off my sackcloth and girded me with gladness, to the end that my soul may sing praise to thee and not be silent. God will give us a song in our heart that we just want to shout out to other people. Weeping endures for a night, joy comes in the morning. It's just a season. Another thing I think that's important is to maintain a grateful heart. Like again, Job did not shake his fist at God. In all this, he did not sin or charge God foolishly. Look for God in the details, because you'll see that he had his hand in all of it. In the case of my wife, I can see many, my children were so young, they couldn't even open up the front door of the apartment where we lived in Turkey. But my mother-in-law was there. So when my wife suffered the aneurysm, she just very quietly told the children to go sit down in the kitchen and eat their breakfast. Meanwhile, and it was a good thing that they didn't see what was going on in the other room as the paramedics came and took her away. My mother-in-law being there, there was one, nobody in the building spoke English, with the exception of one embassy employee who for some reason that day did not go to work on time. And he was able to contact me at the embassy so that I could get back and assist in trying to take care of Jennifer. And the details of how God worked in the hearts of people. Most notably, Jennifer has an aunt that lost her brother, lost her husband, and had been very angry at God for a long time. And almost immediately after this happened, she spoke to my mother-in-law, Sarah Jo, and said, I know that if I don't get right with God, I will not see Jennifer again. And she is a completely changed person. And there are other people like this as well. So draw near to God, hold on tight to the hope that we have, cling to the Scriptures because God gives you comfort in the Scriptures. Maintain a grateful heart and look for God in the details. And especially look for people with the soft hearts that God sends your way. And finally, be ready to comfort other people with the same comfort wherewith God has comforted you. Well, yeah, my mother-in-law was with me in Turkey when this happened, because I was working at the time as a naval attaché in Turkey. My wife had just had the baby. She couldn't travel immediately, and then she had to come back to Turkey with the 4 children, including, Savannah, who was an infant. So my mother-in-law came out to help her. My mother-in-law, in the course of her life, lost her brother, and then a very tragic thing to lose her daughter. Jennifer was 34 at the time. But then within the space of a year, my in-laws had one son. My wife had one brother, and he happened to be a Marine, Staff Sergeant Dan Clay. And he was the first Marine from Pensacola that was killed in Iraq. He had served in Fallujah during his first tour of duty in Iraq, had cleared out the insurgents in Fallujah, went back again a year later and had to do the same thing. And Dan was, he was one of 10 Marines killed in Iraq in a single incident, which was the worst single incident in Iraq up until that day. So Dan was killed a year later. So my mother-in-law and father-in-law and in-laws, all of them, had to deal with the loss of a son, a brother, and a sister, and a daughter, all within the space of a year. And again, I think God, He knows our hearts. He knows what we can bear up under. He raised up Job as a standard for generations, and his eyes are constantly scanning the earth looking to show himself strong on the behalf of people whose hearts are inclined toward him. And that's why I think some of the early disciples counted themselves fortunate to suffer with Christ, or on the behalf of Christ, or for the message of Christ. Because it's almost as if God has put a stamp of approval on them. Not to say that it's easy, not to say that we don't struggle and that waves of sadness don't come upon us, but my mother-in-law and my father-in-law are very special people, and I really believe that their testimony is unique, and people have looked at them and marvel at how they've been able to bear up under it. And their faith has been so steadfast, and they've been so rock solid. Oh, and I'd like to say one last thing too. One of the most important things when you're going through something like this is to surround yourself with God's people and with friends that will hold you up and just talk to you and remind you of, they can share memories that you had and that can just help lift your spirits. My mother-in-law and my father-in-law certainly have been that to me. And I hope I've been that to them. But I've had so many people that have rallied around me and around my family, not just Christian friends, some total strangers that have heard of the story and have helped out in ways that I couldn't even begin to describe. Just such a wonderful outpouring of love. I feel like I've been on the receiving end of so much more than I could ever give back to anyone. So surround yourself with God's people, because when you start feeling sorry for yourself, they'll be there to help you and to lift you up and encourage you.